Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome once again to a continuation of our class on how to make a simple derby. In the last two classes, we've actually done creating the pattern for this shoe and also cutting out the different pattern pieces. We've looked at making the mean form. Right now, we've cut out all of the pattern pieces and we are tracing out our pattern pieces on our leather. So you trace out every single one of your pattern pieces and then you just simply cut them up into the different parts like so. Having done that, the next thing to do is skiving. Now, skiving is a very important process in shoemaking because it helps you avoid bulges on areas where you are coupling leather pieces together. Simply what it means is slicing out a thin film of the leather from the places where you're going to join the leather, so that when you join the leather you avoid bulges and everything just lies smooth and flush. I'm using a DIY self-created knife made of hacksaw blade that I ground to an angle of 30 degrees. Then I sharpened it on a smooth sandpaper and then I strop it on a piece of leather that I impregnate with a stropping compound. I have access to stropping compound, but if like this is me now stropping the leather, each time it gets a little bit blunt, each time the knife gets a little bit blunt, I strop it, it gets sharp again, and I keep going. So I was talking to you about stropping compounds. If you do not have access to stropping compound, you could just simply mix scoring powder. In Nigeria is sold under the brand name of Vim, the white powder you use for scrubbing your metal pots and such. So if you mix that powder with toothpaste, let it dry and rub it on the flesh side of leather, you can actually use it for stropping. And then while you're stropping, you also need a hard flat surface. I'm using a piece of glass louvers. If you have a piece of marble or granite, that will also work. Some people skive on their ceramic plates or floor tiles. That may work. I haven't tried that, but try it and see what you make of it. After you have skived, the next thing to do is to close the different pieces together. So this is basically just adding glue to your stitching allowances and the areas where the other pieces join them, and then just coupling them together. For derby shoes, I break the shoe into two halves, the front and the back side. So this is me coupling the counter to the facings, and then counter goes to the other facing again. So this is one half of my derby shoe. I'm going to fold the top, the opening of the shoe where I kept the folding allowance. And how to do that, you just make a few notches like so on both sides. So you make the notches as you see me doing here as well. Then you just add glue to the underside and fold it into place. Easy peasy, nothing really fancy about that. So you let it dry for a while and then you just follow your folding lines and fold it into place. There you go. So just follow the folding lines that you made when you created your pattern. Fold it into place like so. Give it some tap to secure it in place with your folding hammer. And that's it. Then we do the same thing that we did for the back area on the front part. So this is where we glue the wingtip to the rest of the vamp. So that's the wingtip right there. You add some glue. You attach it to the rest of the vamp, just ensuring that you maintain the line of your stitching allowance and you don't overshoot anything too much. Give it a light tap with your hammer, and then of course you go ahead at this moment and stitch that wingtip to the vamp, and also stitch your counter to the rest of the facings that you did earlier on. Once that's out of the way, we now come to the part where we have to couple the two. But before we couple the two, we will have to generate the lining for this shoe. For Debbie shoes, and maybe even monk straps, one mono monk straps and double monk straps, I don't make a separate lining for my shoes. I simply just use the lining for the front and back parts that I have divided like so and trace out the linings. So do the same thing for the front part, for the vamp area, trace it out. And that's the lining. Simple, easy. Of course, you notice that around the place where we have the curve of the facing, that I added some extra material. That's just for error, to give myself wiggle room when I'm coupling things together. You'll see how that turns out by the time we're coupling. Then you just loosely cut out the rest of your pattern like so. Don't cut it exactly at the tracing lines. Just give some space so that by the time you're coupling things together, you have room to wiggle around. Then let's start coupling from the front side. You just apply glue only at the tongue area. Not just watch this now. You see that line there, right there? That's all the place that needs glue, both on the lining and on the tongue. And then for the facings area, just the area where you have your eyelets, that's the area where you get glue. You put some glue on. So you put some glue around the eyelet area, and of course on the other eyelet area, and then of course around about the place where you have the opening of the shoe. Just a little bit, teeny weeny bit of glue should do it, not much. All we need the glue to do is to hold things in place while we sew. So that's it right there. So you couple, remember you had, prior to this time, you have sewn your wing tip to the rest of the vamp. Now it's time to couple that vamp to the lining. Of course, you've sewn your counter to the rest of your facings. Now it's time to couple that facing, the backside of the shoe, to the rest of your lining. Having done this, I'll mark out the areas, the procedure for stitching this entire thing together, because this is probably where people have the most problems. Now, I'm going to mark out on the marker the areas and the procedure. You see the area I am marking, that's all the area you need to stitch on this front part. And then on this back part, the area I am marking out right now is also the only areas you need to stitch. Of course, you have sewn the counter to the rest of the facing, so that's the only area that needs to be sewn onto the lining. So like so. So that area that has the marker, let me demonstrate it again. So this area is only the area that gets sewn to the lining. Of course, you've done, that area doesn't get sewn to the lining, but this area on top here gets sewn to the lining. Having done that, you take the back part, just around the point where it curves, you mark out, you just put a marker on it and trim out the excess material that you have up to that point. Then you cut into the lining like so. And then just around that area, you also cut into the lining, trim out the excess that you may have. Trim out the excess, of course. Remember, you cut that notch into the lining like so. The reason why you cut that notch is so that you can actually fold. That wasn't cut very well, so I cut it. Well, you can fold the rest of the lining up as so and be able to stitch the two parts together without the lining getting in the way. So you just add some glue, then add some glue around your stitching allowances on the front part as well. Then all that remains to be done is to couple the front and the back parts together, which is what you see me do, like this. So you get your lining out of the way and couple it. Get the lining out of the way and couple. That's it. Just give it some light taps with hammer. And like we did earlier on, I would also show you the areas that you now need to stitch. You see, you just take it up front a bit and then follow the line as you see me draw. Even on a flatbed sewing machine, you'll be able to stitch this without incident. Because of the notch that we have cut to the pattern, you are able to pull the lining out of way, and then the front part of the lining, you're also able to pull it out of the way so that you can put that into a sewing machine and sew. And that's it. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. The rest of the videos on lasting will be coming up shortly, so wait for that. If you found this helpful, do subscribe to the channel, like and share the video, invite your friends to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel as well. Merry Christmas. See you in the next video.